Welcome to the Pressure Tested Podcast. Norma, I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for your patience. I know we rescheduled you a couple of times, but I'm interested to dig right in.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks.
Okay, first off, I can't not say this. Like, I am blown away by how young you look. when you told me how old you were yesterday and I looked at your LinkedIn, I was like, that must be a picture she took 10 years ago. I literally said that in my head. At some point when we're off camera, you gotta tell me the whole beauty routine. Like, you know, what skincare products are you using?
Yeah.
If you have an injector, you can share that with me too. You don't have to. But you look fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so tell me, I just want to start from the beginning. So I looked you up on LinkedIn, and it says you have a bachelor's degree in interior design. So you go to school, you get your interior design degree. Where do you go from there?
Well, I have to go back a little bit farther than that because I'm a late bloomer. I started very late with my first degree.
Okay.
I was in my 30s.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I am the epitome of a late bloomer throughout to this day, actually, and I'll tell you why. Literally, I started out in my 30s, undergrad, had 2 kids, was always a stay-at-home mom, and I tried to pretend I was still a stay-at-home mom when I went to college. So it took me a while to get through it, in other words.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's okay.
got my degree in interior design and loved that. And that led me to healthcare design,
Okay.
where I really got interested in evidence-based design, which means the built environment really determines outcomes, right? Especially for patients.
Really?
They
That's
use less
interesting.
medication. They stay shorter visits. It helps with, the staff as well. And I really got into that, and I thought, wait a minute, this applies to every type of built environment, right?
Okay.
And every type of user.
Yeah.
And I got really interested in sustainability at that point.
Okay.
So I thought, you know what? I'm going to research more, and I'm a learner, so I love to learn. And so I went to grad school at SMU and got my master's in sustainability and development.
Okay.
And then I started to work on green building projects and did that for several years as well. And then I morphed into a principal of architecture, and I ran a market sector where I did a lot of business development and, formed teams. So my trajectory, although it was late in coming, it was very fast.
It's kind of wild to me that, even with interior design, it almost immediately becomes about people for you because you figure out this way to help people with something that you know. And I think, if I think of most interior designers, they're like, I want to make things pretty, it's interesting that you almost immediately found a way to take it and do something with people with it.
Honestly, you took the words out of my mouth. It has always been about people. And no matter what position I've been in or what job I've had, it's always been about people.
That's
more
really
than
cool.
the projects, right?
That's
really
interesting.
digging in, really, unpacking what they need and what they want. And sometimes they don't tell you, and you have to figure it out.
I think that's a skill either people have or they don't. So I think that's great that you recognize that you have that skill and leaned into it. I'm interested in something you just said about I just want to hear this. I've got an older mom, and really she's not that old, but she's just not in great health.
Yeah.
And so she was recently in this hospital, and I hated this hospital. And I'm not going to say the hospital name, but everything about the way that hospital was designed felt very like this was the end for her.
Right.
And so tell me a little bit about that, like what you just said about the medication.
Yeah.
Like how does that work? I mean, are there green spaces involved? Like what goes into that?
Absolutely. And really, it's hard to find a hospital that doesn't look hospitality-ish, rather than sterile environments that we're used to in the day. But studies have been done for a long time that prove what the patient sees and what the patient experiences affects their health and their healing and their stress.
It's interesting.
The stress level, I don't know if you're stressed when you go in to visit her, but
Of
I'm
course.
always stressed
Yeah,
when I go in and
absolutely.
visit people in the hospital.
Everyone
It
is.
also helps with that. Wayfinding's a huge thing, right? You can't find your way around.
Yep,
You
that's
find
true.
it, and then you can't remember how you got there, so you're
Yep.
trying to figure out how to get back to your car. Those kinds of things, what you see out the window. It doesn't just matter if there's a window in the room for the patient to look out at. It depends on what they see.
Oh yeah, I remember because would like her window would be shut most of the time, but when we'd open, it was just the roof. I was looking at package units, which I'm an HVAC, so I appreciated that, but she doesn't, like that's not something she's interested in.
Exactly. So it does affect their healing process, their stress levels, which stress affects healing as well. So, yeah.
Okay, so with this interior design background, like, did you kind of get there because like you were walking around your own house and like you were just interested in placement of things? Like, how do you come up with this in your 30s that this is what you want to do?
Well, I came up with it a long time before that.
Okay.
Like I was little. I was very creative always. Always the creative one. Always drawing and painting and crafting and doing things like that. So it was really kind of in my blood. It was it's my gift, right? And when I was in middle school, my parents built a house and they let me be part of the process. And I got an up-close look at what it was like to really craft and create and curate, I like to call it, rooms and the building, the house. And so I really got interested in that, and I thought, this is what I want to do. Now, my life took some decisions were made that my life turned a different direction, and I didn't get to fulfill that dream for a while, but man, it was worth the wait because I really enjoyed going back to school and learning it and working in it too.
I feel like I always just assumed people had this stereotypical college experience. And I'm somebody that didn't have a stereotypical college experience.
Okay.
Like I went to TCU when I was real young, had way too much fun, did not make it, and had to go back to school later in life.
Yeah.
And so, I was already older. I had a family already. My daughter was young when I was going back to school. And so this is kind of off topic, but how do you feel about that? Do you ever feel like you kind of miss out on some of those conversations when people are like, oh, I was in this sorority or I was in this fraternity? Like, do you feel like, how do you kind of navigate that for people who don't have that typical college experience?
Yeah, I don't really regret it. I love my path. I love where I'm at today, so I love everything about the path, even though sometimes it was really hard. It was really hard to be and towards the end I was a single mom, so it was really hard to go to school and take care of the kids and make sure they got to their sporting events and so forth. So it was good though. I don't regret it a bit. I've had a different experience than others do, and I've heard people say to me, I wished I would have had your experience because I would have taken it more seriously. And when you're paying for it yourself, you take it a little bit more seriously. Yeah. So I've had it the other way too. So no regrets.
I think that's great. That's a great outlook. I think people get caught up on the things that they didn't get to experience, and they can kind of let that foreshadow everything else.
Right.
Okay, so you go interior design. You have a long career with Beck, and then later in life you transition to where you want to help coach people.
Yeah.
So tell me why you decided to start coaching people.
Well, I was already kind of doing it with what I was doing every day at work, right? People naturally gravitated to me for mentoring and for coaching, especially women in the industry. It's no secret, it's a male-dominated industry, right? And
Absolutely.
so when somebody continues to be promoted to a position that other women want to be at, they see themselves there. They want to know, how do you get there? And so I did mentor a lot. I coached a lot. And when I looked back on what I did over the course of the years, it was, again, it always came back to the people, right? Helping people show up their best. That was my driver.
Okay.
And so I thought, I'm getting up there in age and I want to retire from what I'm doing, but I don't ever want to just not work. So what's the right path for me? Again, reinventing myself, being a late bloomer, I went ahead and got some certifications in coaching. And I started dabbling with it, and I really loved it, and it really gave me energy. And so I thought, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. So I established my LLC, and I got everything together and decided that was what I was going to do the rest of my life.
How different do you think it is going from getting that weekly paycheck and just depending on this like organization to really, you provide them with something and they provide you with something. Yeah. How is it to just go out on your own after years of having that steady paycheck? Like, how did you adapt to that?
I will tell you, it was frightening. It took a long time. I processed it in my mind for a long time before I actually said the words that I was going to, and committed to it. It was hard to let go of the paycheck, the perks, the benefits, you name it. It was a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah.
But I just knew deep down inside this was my purpose and this was what I was meant to do. and I've been dabbling in it my whole life. And so I thought, you know what, this is a step of faith, and I'm going to go out on it, and I'm going to do it. And I have not regretted it 1 second.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love what you said about it gives you energy. Mm-hmm. Because everybody always talks about introverts and extroverts, and they say, introverts aren't necessarily people who are shy. They're just people that don't get energy from interacting with others.
Right.
And so, how did you kind of become aware that, helping people was what immediately gave you energy back? And what does that even feel like? Like, how do you judge that? Because I can do different things and and some days they can make me feel super drained, and some days they can make me have a lot of energy. Yeah. So how do you kind of, for the person that's sitting around kind of trying to figure out what does give me energy, like how do you ascertain that that's what gave you the energy?
Right. Well, Gallup, I probably everybody knows what Gallup is, right? Yeah. The workplace analytics company, amazing data there. And that's where CliftonStrengths is housed under Gallup. Gallup's data, or Gallup has it's called 5 Clues to Talent. This is kind of how you gauge your energy level, right? Okay. 5 clues to talent. If you're doing something and you get lost in time, like do you ever do that where you're in flow?
Not very often anymore, but yes.
Yes. Do you remember that? Yeah. Okay. That's a clue to a talent, right? That gives you energy. If you get really satisfied from doing it and you're like, I cannot wait to do that again, right? Somebody tells you, man, you did a great job. You're really good at podcasting. Then you're like, okay, that's a cue, right? You love it, right? And it's what you do. It gives you energy. And I like to think of our CliftonStrengths as also what gives me energy and what drains my energy, right? Okay. And so your CliftonStrengths can tell you that too, but you can just assess that on your own by just getting curious. What kinds of things do I just get lost in time? What do I learn really quickly? And what do I can't wait to do it again kind of thing.
I love that. Okay. What you just said is so important to me, and it's something I feel like I always talk to anybody that knows anything about StrengthsFinder. And we're jumping into this early, but I'm going to circle back to all my other stuff. But something that I'm always so just aware of is like if I have this list of 34 things that, and it's kind of a list of top to bottom, I just am so drawn to the bottom. And I'm like, how dare this test tell me I'm not good at some of these things? And a lot of the things that I'm not good at tend to be about relationships. And so I've had to try to figure out, what does that mean? And originally I'm like, well, I'm just going to focus on these things. I'm going to figure out how to be better at these things. So just break it all down for us. Talk to us like we don't know anything about this, and tell me everything about StrengthsFinder and what it means for some of it to give you energy and some of it not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're not alone in that. Most people look at number 1, number 2, and they're like, oh, cool. They even go to 5, and then they jump right down to 34. And it's like, stop.
That's exactly what I did today. That's funny.
Stop. I know, it's so common. And I get our tendency to do that because if we want that promotion, if we want that relationship, if we want whatever we want, right, we think we have to fix what's broken.
Yes.
Because that's what we've been taught our whole life, right? In school, we get tutored in classes that we're getting C's and D's in, right? The whole positive psychology that Don Clifton coined is really, let's focus on what we do right instead of what we don't do well, right? There's the path to success. So if I break down the 34 list, it's talents. It's not strengths. They're talents. They're latent talents until we do some work to make them a strength, right? Okay. You dedicate time and energy and knowledge, and you get skills, and you do all that. They become strengths.
Okay. So
some of them are dormant, just sitting there waiting for you to discover them and become great. So the top, they're in ranking order of intensity. Okay. Top are they pack the most powerful punch, I always say. They're the thing you need to pay attention to. Usually it's 1 through 10 that are most powerful.
Okay.
The bottom are just lesser strengths. They're how you don't naturally think, feel, and behave. There's nothing wrong with you that you don't have those at the top. It just means it's not naturally how you think, right? Not naturally how you behave.
Even you telling me this, I mean, hearing it and knowing that it's like logically correct, I'm still like, are you sure? I feel like there's something wrong with me because like I'll just tell you, my lowest strength, and this makes me feel like the worst person on the planet, but my lowest strength is empathy. Empathy is something I have a hard time with. I have a hard time putting myself into other people's shoes and feeling what they feel. Yeah. Which is so weird to me because I cry on commercials. Like, I don't understand how this is like a lesser strength for me. But immediately, I'm just drawn to, well, there must be something wrong with me if this is number 34.
Well, number one, there are so many people that have empathy as 34 and they get really upset. And so you're not alone. Do not be upset, though, because what I always say is just because empathy is 34 doesn't mean you're not empathetic. Okay. If you're high relator or you have other strengths that are high, right, you can show empathy through those.
Okay.
When it's situational at that point. Somebody with number 1 empathy is empathetic all the time. They can't turn it off.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
You are situationally empathetic because you just explained how you're empathetic at times. Okay? So It's all situational.
Okay.
So the first thing I always tell people is please do not get upset about your 34. And I give them my example. My 34, wait for it, is ideation.
Really?
I'm an interior designer. I don't appreciate that at all. Okay?
That's so wild.
But here's what it is. So I'm a maximizer. That's number 1 for me.
So tell me what that means.
I take good to great to excellent. Like,
okay.
It's like I want to make something strong, ridiculous. Okay?
I like that.
So ideation is you like to sit around and brainstorm all day. And
Ideation's my number 2.
Good for you. I do not want to sit in a room and brainstorm all day. In fact,
it's not super productive. I'll just tell you now.
Well, it can be very productive, and we need to talk about how to tap into that. But even like writing, I love to write, but I hate starting with a white piece of paper. I am the best editor in the world. I will make your work look fantastic. Okay. So I don't like to start from blank. Okay. That's what ideation is a lot. It's like thinking, all these innovations and creative things that nobody's thought of or, you haven't lately. I like to take somebody else's 3 best ideas, find the best one, and maximize it. So I'm really creative, but I don't have ideation.
That's interesting.
High in my list.
I love maximize. That's such a good one, though, because you can maximize people. You can you can come up, you can start this business and you're going to maximize this business. Like that's a great first strength.
They're all great. They're all neutral.
See,
actually,
again, I'm judging the strengths.
We don't judge them. That's the first thing. We have guiding principles here. No, but
so funny.
It's true. But they all have dark sides.
Yeah.
And being number 1 maximizer isn't always pretty.
Okay, tell me what's wrong with it.
Tell me the
dark side.
Perfectionist.
Ooh.
Never good enough.
Ooh.
Not done. Sometimes things have to get done.
Yes.
Yep. And sometimes I just churn on it to make it better and better and better. And that's a blind spot for me that I really work on daily.
Okay. That's
it really
interesting.
is. Yeah.
What are your other strengths?
Number 2 is connectedness. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. That I believe in that so much. It's almost ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah. But I also love to connect people and ideas and things like that. So I see the bigger picture.
Okay, let's dig into this connectedness. Everything happens for a reason. So do you feel like you're more like adaptable to when things happen? It's easier for you to say that was meant to happen.
Absolutely.
It happened because of this, and I can move past it.
Right. And the dark side of that is sometimes I don't follow up on stuff because I think, well, it wasn't supposed to happen. Oh, that can really burn.
That could get you.
That could burn me.
That's so. I mean, I understand that because sometimes you're like, well, maybe that person doesn't want to. Like there's this. I'm not going to say any names. There's this girl that I really want to have on the podcast. She's like rescheduled on me a couple times. I'm like, maybe it's not meant to be. But it's like I know that she'd have a ton of things to say, but.
Well, and I literally thought that about our reschedule. I'm like, it wasn't the right time. It just wasn't. I had a friend call me out on it the other day. 2 friends actually were sitting around, and I was not following up on something. They're like, you need to ask. And I'm like, yeah, but I think if it's supposed to happen, it will. And they're like, no, you need to follow up. And I followed up, and guess what?
It happened?
It happened.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
So I need to look
3?
at that. 3 is achiever.
Okay.
Man.
That's my 3rd one, too.
Okay. Do you love lists?
I mean, yes. Even my 9-year-old daughter, she's like, do we need to make a list? I'm like, yeah, we need to make a list. Let's go ahead and do that.
Always. Do you ever put something on the list that you already did, but you didn't
Absolutely. I just want to check it off.
Oh, my gosh. I'm addicted.
Okay. Gray, my husband, Gray, he will see some of my list, and he's like, Kelly, you have to go to that meeting. Why are you putting it on your list? Because I was like, because I'm going to check it off when it's done.
Yeah. So we're self-starters, right? We like to be busy.
Yes.
Every day starts at 0. I don't know about you, but I wake up and I'm like, I have to accomplish something today.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I feel like if I can't complete something, I have to complete something.
Oh yeah, me too.
Even if it's not everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a foreign concept to me to not wake up and immediately start accomplishing things. That I can't even think of a day where I didn't wake up and have at least 5 things that I knew I had to do.
Yeah.
And I, didn't get them done.
Because I don't do well
it's
with
almost
that.
like I can't imagine it. I can't look outside that idea. So I may be too far one direction on it, but
yeah.
I always kind of thought it was like OCD. I was like,
Yeah.
no, this like list thing is because I've been doing it since I was a little kid.
Me too.
I mean, I remember being like 10 years old and making lists, and they would be like some far off lists, like I'm going to do this when I'm 16. And it was like all these like random things. And my sister thought I was such a dork. She's like, you must have like a weird OCD thing. I mean, she was like, sisters are rough.
They are
Just
real.
in
I have
general.
2 of them. I know.
But she had it in my brain that was like a weird thing. So I'm glad we're talking through this.
You sound very futuristic. Is that in your top 5?
It's not my top 5.
I bet
think
it's up there,
in my
though.
top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I went from 5 to 34. So
yeah. And the thing about strengths, you mentioned your childhood, literally they show up so young for us, our talents, and sometimes we don't realize.
How early do you think somebody could take a strengths finder and it kind of tell them about themselves?
My grandson did at 10.
Okay.
Because they have a child's version of it that doesn't give you your 34, it gives you like 5.
Okay.
And they're named a little differently so that kids can understand them better, which is really interesting. They have students. They have CliftonStrengths for students,
Okay.
so high school kids can
that's
take
cool.
them. Yeah.
That's great.
And then the reports are aimed at them, like studying and thinking about your future and stuff like that. It's really cool.
I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
we're on 4. What's your 4?
4 is responsibility. Oh,
That one's real low for me, actually.
okay. Well,
I don't know what that means. Okay,
you
tell me about
do what
responsibility.
you say you're gonna do.
Yeah,
Period.
Oh my gosh. See, again, I'm judging my strengths. I read that because it's pretty close to 34, and I was like, because I think I overcommit.
Yeah.
I overcommit to people.
That's a dark
And then when
side.
I don't get it,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. But you know what? You
have
didn't
to
get
live
where
with
you
this.
are without doing what you say you're going to do. So I wouldn't think too bad about that.
good.
Right? You've got
Okay,
it.
so you responsibility, and then 5.
Futuristic.
Futuristic.
Love
Good.
to dream about the future. Love to envision the future with my clients. What their brighter future is. It drives me. I'm looking in the windshield. I'm not looking in the rearview mirror much.
I love that. So with that, do you see? Okay, I recently went through this thing where we sat down and we operate off traction here.
Yeah.
And I sat down with a woman named Lori Grace, and she's putting on this little workshop, and she had us fill out a traction a VTO, but for ourselves. And it put us out, 3 years. What do I look like in 3 years? Is that something you do with the people you coach? Do you kind of put them through something like that?
We don't always go out that far.
Okay.
A lot of them really just, it's like, what do I do tomorrow? Like literally that's how it is for
Yeah,
some.
that's
And
good.
that's great. You know, we start wherever we start and, we get there. But I don't do that necessarily with my clients. I do a lot of purpose work. Like, we do that through strengths. Like,
What is purpose work?
well, it's really figuring out your values and things like that, but also through your strengths. What I like to do is strengths tell you how you do things, not what. So people say all the time, I don't know what career I should be in.
Right.
Like, what should I do? I don't know. Let's look at what you do well. What are those clues, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that give you energy? What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about animals? Whatever it is, let's align what you love to do, what gives you energy and what you're good at with your job. What kind of a job would that be? Like I had a student that her dad was a lawyer, and he wanted her to be a lawyer, and she's getting ready to go to college. She's like, I don't want to be a lawyer. And I'm like, well, law is a great, career to have, but it doesn't mean you have to be the kind of lawyer he is.
Right.
What do you really like to do? And we looked at her strengths. She loves input, learner, analytical, all that stuff. I'm like, lawyers need researchers, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you could be the one that unpacks the boxes and looks for those clues.
Yeah.
And so just looking at it differently, like you can be in a career and do different things and get on the right seat of the bus, right? For your strengths.
Okay.
So,
Let me ask you
does that
this.
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel that most people that come to you for coaching, well, first off, let's ask this. Do you feel like you coach more women or men?
Women.
Why?
Not on purpose.
Okay.
Again, I think my clients are all in the AEC community because that's where I came from, right? They know me. There's credibility there. Again, we're in a male-dominated industry. Mm-hmm. They just gravitate towards a female coach that knows the industry.
Right.
I know the issues. I've lived them. I've seen the successes. I've seen the pitfalls. So I think that's why. It's not 100% women, but there are a lot of women that I coach.
Do you think, and this is a wild generalization, but do you think that it's more likely for a woman to feel like she needs coaching than it is for a man?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, more women are disengaged at work than men.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Gallup says 51% of women feel extremely stressed in their job, and 42% have felt, like their mental health was at risk for their job.
Okay, I read this. Is this about this blender? What is that? That was when somebody said this to me. Mm-hmm. It was one of those concepts that I couldn't stop thinking about because I was so convinced that I was one or the other. Is it blender and splitter?
Yes.
Do you know about this?
Blender and splitter. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Blending your life or splitting your work and your home life. Women don't have a choice. Yes. If you're a mother, you don't have a choice. Because you've got those responsibilities. And we take on the mental load, especially if we're in a position at work where we're leading. Okay, we're leading at work and we're leading at home, and there's not always the flexibility that's needed for that. So there's a lot of stress.
Tell me the whole definition of a blender versus a splitter, just so people can kind of catch up to what we know.
I'm not an expert on that, but from what I've read, is a blender is when you kind of blend your life and at home and at work, and there's gray areas and they overlap.
Like you're sending emails from the soccer game, and you're
doing both at both things. You're doing the other at each of them. But the splitter is when you keep them separate. Yeah.
When you go home, you want it to be done.
That's just hard to do.
It is hard to do.
It's hard to do as a woman.
But I really had to think about this because, the way that I was kind of told this information was that women especially, are unhappy because they want their lives to be one or the other. They're more likely to want to be a blender or be a splitter, and they're forced to work in situations where they're made to be one or the other, and that leads to kind of some dissatisfaction, some disengagement. And I just thought that was crazy, and I was like, well, I'm a blender. I'm a blender all day long. I'm working at 7:00 at night. I'm working at this, but then I realized that no, I'm not a blender at all. Because once I turn it off, do not email me. If I get a text at 10:30 about work, it makes me upset because I'm like, no, my brain has physically shut off from work. Yeah. And it might be longer. So I just think that's an interesting idea because I'm constantly in a situation where I'm dealing with women that want to work from home. Yeah. And that is such a hard thing for me to deal with because we don't have a work from home culture, but I'm trying to kind of be cognizant of this idea that some people need more of a blending situation. Yeah. So it's just tough.
Yeah. And, the whole thing about the blender is you have to have boundaries. Mm-hmm. It's healthy to have boundaries. It's healthy to shut things off. Yeah. You're not meant to do everything all the time.
I just think it's a lot. I think that's how people get, just disengaged when they feel like I have to be on all the time.
We're on a hamster wheel.
Yeah, that's tough.
We're on a hamster wheel, and we think we have to show up that way, and we have to show up 100% all the time, and something's going to give.
For sure. So these women come to you mostly out of AEC industry. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like by the time they get to you, do you feel like you're kind of helping them figure out what's next for them? Or are you helping them kind of, if they're at a point in their career, kind of climb the corporate ladder? What are you seeing? If they get to you and they want coaching, are they already kind of burned out and wanting to do something else?
That's a lot of it. 90% of the women that I coach are going, what's next for me? This isn't working. Okay. Rarely do I hear, I want to get to the top. It's just,
why?
It's because they can't even handle where they're at right now because the work-life balance thing doesn't happen, right? They don't have an integration there, right? So they're like, it's going to be even more demanding if I get promoted, right? And I think that I think values have changed too, that, you don't have to be at the top to be successful. Success. And so we always start with, what does success look like to you?
Yeah, that's good.
It might just be doing something you love to do. And that might be, at a nonprofit,
That's great.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so we start there. What does success look like for you? Because it changes over time. It changed for me. I wanted to climb the ladder.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I wanted to have significance, right?
Significance is 5 for me.
Okay. Well, and that doesn't necessarily, it means that whatever you're doing
You want it to
means
matter,
something
right? Yeah.
that matters not only to you, but to everybody else, or a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was happy to get off that, out of that hamster wheel, honestly, because it was more than when you peek behind the curtain, finally, you see some things that you didn't know you were going to see.
Yeah.
And so
true.
that's disengaging, disenchanting for some people, and it is for me. And I just was like, okay,
That's not for me.
not for me,
No,
not for me.
I
Let me
think-
just go over here and help some people.
Yeah, I think that's great. So, specifically for, this construction world that we're all in, what do you see the real barriers to women kind of getting to the top? And one you just kind of said was, well, not all of them want to get to the top.
That's right. Yeah.
What other barriers are you seeing?
Honestly, there are external barriers that we all know. It's kind of the policies and the ways, in which our organizations operate. It's male domination in the industry, whatever. It's not just our industry.
Yeah.
But I like to always go to the internal issues, the things that are stopping us that we control, right? That's the only thing we can control.
That's good.
Until organizations get it,
Yeah.
those things won't change. What can you change? And it's all the stuff inside, right? It's the stuff we're telling ourselves, right? It's
That's
the stuff
good.
we're
That's really good.
believing. So we've got to stop that. Imposter syndrome is one of those. Like, I can remember I was in my 30s when I went to college. I can remember, and it was the day when you opened the mailbox and got the report card, the grade card. I got a 4.0 my first semester.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
At 33, whatever it was. And the first thing I thought of is, when are they going to figure out I'm not that smart? So we doubt ourselves even in success.
I agree.
This is our problem. That's not their problem.
Yesterday, when I found out about the award, the woman that had nominated me came in and she goes, "Girl, you got it." And I was like, "I got what?" She's like, "Well, you got the email." And so I read the email for 10 minutes because I was so blown away. But I was like, it had to have been sent to the wrong Kelly. I said that twice because it blew my mind. So I kept looking for a way out of it, kind of. And I don't even feel like I suffer from imposter syndrome. I feel a lot of women do.
We all do.
But we all do
at times.
It's
we all
interesting.
do at times.
Why? Why do we go through that?
And it keeps us where we don't want to be. It keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
For a lot of women, they're very stuck right now.
So if somebody comes to you and you know that this is something that's really keeping them from being their best self, how do you get them past that?
We dig into who they are, who they were meant to be, the gifts that they have.
Oh, okay. So interesting. So you kind of relate it back to maybe they're not getting to operate with all of their strengths, and that's why they feel this and pile.
100%.
This is good. I like this. Okay, cool.
It's the baseline of all my coaching. I don't start coaching until they have their CliftonStrengths.
Really?
Because it's a reference point to who they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we get lost through life. We're told, if you're high in communication, you're told you talk too much, so you stop talking. Okay. Well, that keeps you away from where you're supposed to be, right?
Right.
You might need to regulate how much you talk.
Yeah.
But literally, you've got to live in that. When you're little, or you might be told, you ask too many questions. Well, that's a good thing. But now, as an adult in the working world, you just need to ask the right questions and not overstimulate people with questions. So, I mean, we were born with all these. So what are you not realizing? They're the latent talents that are sitting there waiting for you, that are going to drive you to success, whatever that is for you. And then, are you operating in that bottom area? You're trying to fix something that can't be fixed, right? You can incrementally get better at something. You can incrementally be a better empathetic person. If you try really, really, really hard and think about it all the time before you say anything, you're like, I'm going to lead with empathy. You can do that. But how exhausting would that be? And it probably brings it up 3 or 4 notches on your list.
I after you've said this, like, you've already opened my mind so much to this idea that when you're trying to enhance these lesser strengths, that's when your energy is really getting zapped. Yes. And so, like, I spend a lot of my time listening to kind of drama that, because HR is a department that reports to me. So I get caught up in this, like, and I don't know why HR reports up to the CFO. That's one of the world's strangest mysteries. But anyway, so, I'm in this room and, I'm hearing these things that people are going through, and, and we've got to manage this person differently or relate to this person like this. And I walk out of those conversations and I feel like, oh my God, I can't do anything else. It's time for me to go home. It's time for a glass of wine.
I need to lay down.
Feel so but it's so interesting now that you're saying all this, because that's just something that's really hard for me. Yeah. I mean, I can do it, but it's not something that just comes super easy. Yeah. Like, I'm happy sitting there thinking about strategy and something, it's like, but that's funny. That's interesting.
No. And we all have to do things we don't like to do, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we just have to do it. Yeah. This doesn't give you a pass to not do something that your job requires.
Of course.
As long as your job doesn't require it most of the time.
Right.
That's when you're in the wrong seat.
Okay, so this is a perfect segue into, so I did StrengthsFinder in college, and then I brought it to Moss Utilities, and I got the whole exec group to do it. And it just kind of, we talked about it on an exec retreat, and then it just kind of died, right? We didn't ever do anything else with it. How far should we push this thing down? So we have 475 employees at Moss Utilities, and 250 of those, or 250 to 300 of those, are field workers out in the field laying pipe. But some of our best managers were at one point laborers. So where do we push StrengthsFinder? How far down do we push StrengthsFinder? Do we see 20 people that work out in the field and we say those 20 people come in and do StrengthsFinder? Like, what's your recommendation on this?
All of them.
Really?
Now, not all at the same time, but yes, the strategy has to be everybody, because, there's so many assessments out there for the workplace, right? The thing I'm obsessed about with CliftonStrengths is it's so personal and it's so practical. They can use it at home, in their marriages, in their friendships, in their community volunteering, with their kids. Literally, it's very practical because it's all about you. It's not about anybody else.
Right.
And by the way, Gallup says you have to speak to 33 million people to find somebody with the same 5 in the same order as you. 33 million. What? Think about that.
No way.
So everybody is so unique. And if they know what that is and they know how to leverage that for success, their marriage will be better, their friendships will be better. Not to mention collaboration at work, frustrations that they have with someone. Now they understand each other. It gives them a language, right?
A better way to understand them.
Like, oh, that's why you talk that's why you're dominating the meeting all the time. And now you know how to regulate that,
right? Because
it's awareness too. Awareness about me and awareness about the team that I have to work with. It's amazing. It really is.
What about this? Number one, I'm going to make everyone that works for me take this as soon as I leave here. But what do you think about the idea of when you sit down and try to determine, so we have situations where people are good at what they do, and we assume that means that they can be a manager of people.
Oh my gosh.
How do we use StrengthsFinder and kind of before we make these decisions about people, because we've seen situations where people get really great, smart, capable individuals get put into roles that they are not right for because it's the next step up.
Yes.
And because we want to reward them for being good at what they're doing right now. And then they take that next step, and before we know it, they're no longer with the organization because it was the wrong step for the people underneath them and it was the wrong step for them.
100%.
How do we fix that?
That is my passion.
Okay.
The people manager is my jam, okay? Because they're the most disengaged of all the workforce. Because they're stuck between leaders, their agenda, and the people who are actually doing the work, right? And they're trying to engage their team. but they were really good individual contributors. That's why they got promoted.
Right.
But they weren't equipped to be a people manager. So the work I do is to equip those managers to be more like a coach than a boss.
Okay.
I have a program called Boss to Coach.
Really?
Yeah.
And you take it to different organizations? Oh, I love that.
And what you do is
Boss to coach.
you learn, even before you get that promotion, about how to be a coach, right? How to be a coach to your people, how to show up for them, how to be a good people manager. And that way they are equipped for it and they absolutely thrive in it. Now, you could find out at that point that they're not made for that. Some people just aren't made to manage people.
That was my next question.
There's also ways, and we need to get creative about it, and that's where your ideation can come in, is you can really figure out how can we reward and promote this person within whatever they're already doing.
Yes.
Because they love what they're doing. That's why they're doing it so well.
Yes, this is so important.
You
I
know?
think that this is because people just, especially, and I know that this is not exclusive to Moss, but people just get down this path of if you're doing well, the reward is to get promoted
100%.
and be given more responsibility. More responsibility seems to always mean people. And like as a people manager, people are the hardest thing I do any day of the week.
And not everybody's cut out for it, and that's okay.
I don't know that I'm.
We
cut
need
out for
everybody.
it, really. Like, I think it's because it drains me. You know, like I'm a contributor, and sometimes I even have to think that and say, okay, how do I support these people?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about this boss to coach thing. So tell me the format of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a neat program. It can expand or contract however it needs to. It can be a 4-hour workshop, or it can be a 4-module program. You know, but there's certain things we need to know about how do you go from a boss to a coach? And one of the things that is most important is meaningful conversations, ongoing meaningful conversations.
That's good.
The annual review is out. Sorry. We still have to have those, but that's what everybody just relies on. One annual review a year. You find out if you made it or didn't, all the list of things you got to do better, you know, and it's tied to your compensation and all that. That's just not the will of the workplace right now, the will of the workforce. The younger generations want more conversations. So Gallup has five conversations that every manager should have, and some of them are called quick connects, which is exactly what it sounds like. You don't schedule them. You just stop by real quick, engage that person. How you doing? What are you working on? What do you need? You know, that person is going to feel like they're really cared about.
You know, and I've like, without knowing about that, I've learned that because people want to have that, you know, that interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm really telling the world about myself today. But like, I don't care if I ever have that interaction. You know, like leave me be. I'm happy in my box. But you know, I've had to learn to get out and go and just say hi. Like I've had to teach myself to be like, say hi. Yeah. How are you? Right. What are you doing? You know, like I have to engage. Yeah. And it's like some people just are. I think it's funny, and where I'm going with this is, I think people can be taught to be better at this stuff.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm so interested in this program.
Yeah, because you can be taught. And as you become a leader, it's less about you and doing something and more about them, right?
Yeah.
So you have to get out of your comfort zone and you have to do things that are about people, right?
Right. Because
you want to keep them.
Of course. Well, not only do you want to keep them, you want them to be satisfied in their roles.
Exactly.
You want them to feel... You know, if I'm happy in my box and I feel satisfied when I get to go home because I've been happy in my box, but your responsibility is all of these other people, you want them to feel the same way when they go home.
Absolutely. So you want them to go home and go, I can't wait to go back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Instead of the Sunday scaries, which we've all had at times.
Okay. I love that you just brought that up. I feel like, you know, even with where I'm at in my you know, career and I love what I do. I love what we've accomplished here. I love business. I love the whole thing. But sometimes on Sunday night, I'm just like, oh, you know, why do people do that? You know, even if they're satisfied in the role, why do they still get the Sunday scaries?
Well, I think it could be a lot of different things. I think really examine, like, get deeper. Like, why do I feel this way? What about that makes me feel that way? Because it could be just that you're tired. It could be that there's something you have to do tomorrow that you're really dreading because it does drain you, but you have to do it. You know, it could be a lot of things. So I guess I would just say get curious about why you feel that way, because I'm certain it doesn't happen every Sunday.
No. No, it
so
doesn't.
there's
You're
something
right.
going on there that you just need to ask a few questions to
That's
yourself.
so great.
Yeah.
I love this entire idea that you just help people get to know themselves better, and then they can relate to all these different questions that they have by just understanding themselves more.
Literally, you and everybody else has everything they need inside of them right now to be what they want to be.
That's your connectedness coming out. That's your
100%. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right. I wanna get into this. I'm not sure where we're at on time, but I want to talk to you about something that you told me about yesterday that I just thought was super cool.
Yeah.
You're part of something called Be Pro, Be Proud.
Yeah.
Tell me about this, because as you know, we're in skilled trade.
Yep.
We rely on labor. Two things people don't seem to want to get into anymore. So tell me all about this program.
Yeah. Well, it's my passion project, by the way. For the last 2 years, I've been working with Texo Foundation to raise awareness and money for this. So I'm pretty excited about talking about it. But there's no secret that the skilled workforce is declining, like especially in construction.
Right.
It's a problem for us. And so what Be Pro, Be Proud does, it's a brand new semi-tractor trailer that goes around to schools, middle schools and high schools, and it introduces the technical trades to students as possible careers, right? Careers of first choice. These kids are thinking,
because you didn't
oh,
make
I'm
it to
not,
college.
Yeah, I'm not college material, or my dad works in the factory, so I'm going to work in the factory. Whatever it is, right? Whatever the excuse is it opens their eyes to viable careers that are actually very professional, make a lot of money.
Make a ton of money.
Actually a perfect segue into entrepreneurship if that's what you want. And so we take it in the semi tractor is outfitted, or trailer is outfitted with AR and VR, so it hits the kids where they're at.
Good.
They experience what it's like to be a welder. They
So
experience
put on VR goggles
Yes.
and they get to act like they're welding or something.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes,
I
a
love
lineman. They can go up and they can be in a bucket with the VR goggles on. It makes motions.
gosh, that's so cool.
I mean, it is the coolest thing ever.
That's
Truck
neat.
driver, and then you have all these road conditions.
love
So it's the construction industry plus adjacent, so transportation and manufacturing.
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to have all of those. We get our first unit in Texas rolling in the end of July to be hitting the schools this fall.
That's so cool.
So
How do you get into the schools? How do you get this going?
It's a proven, we're the 8th state to have it, so it's a proven process.
Okay.
And so we've got, of course, Texo Foundation focuses on connecting students with careers. So they're already embedded in the schools, so those relationships
That's
will
great.
get
I
us
didn't
in
realize
there.
that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
How young? What age are you targeting?
Middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school. Yeah.
And some people say high school's too late, but there's still so many that are just have decided not to do anything but work someplace, so we can still get those. And we've had some college bound kids change their minds.
Really?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
So it connects them as they go through there, and they go in with their phones, like looking at their phones, and as soon as they put VR on, that phone is in the pocket and it stays there, and they're chattering amongst each other. And then they sign up for the movement, which means they want to be connected to, if they can say, I'm interested in welding. And then they get connected to, well, these schools teach welding in your area, and then these employers are looking for you.
The VR part, I think, is what just really sets this off for me.
Yeah.
Because, I imagine when I was in school and these people, the firemen would come in or somebody would come in, and you're not that engaged in it.
Yeah.
But to be able to get put into the situation, that's a game changer.
It really is.
I wonder if you guys have one that shows you how to operate equipment. So we're really talking really.
We do.
That's cool.
We do.
Because I think, it's funny, Garrett Moss has had different, YPO buddies of his come in, and, it's something fun for people to get into an excavator and try to operate it.
We have an excavator.
So that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
How can contractors in DFW help and get involved?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because like I said, we're in fabrication right now, and it will be rolling in July. We are still a little bit short of our capital campaign.
Okay.
So we really need help, which would be great. But yeah, we can get them involved. They can, if as a sponsor, they get a lot of benefits, which includes coming on the tours with us, talking to the students. They're going to be put in either if they're an educator or a company, they're going to be put into the database that students can say, hey, and they get those leads.
That's so cool.
They get the leads.
I love that.
Yeah. So
that would be,
come on.
That'd be huge
we need it.
for both of our companies. That's super exciting.
Yeah.
So when we post the podcast, we're gonna set a link up to that too.
Yeah.
So just send us all that information. I think there's a lot of contractors in that area that would love to help out with this.
And just for FYI for you, because this will be too late when the podcast comes out, but tomorrow the Arkansas unit is in Dallas.
Oh, really?
So if you want to go see it, it's
that's so
amazing.
cool. Where's it
It's going to be at Dallas College, North Lake.
Okay.
In Capel.
That's not too far
from 10 to 2. And I'll be there.
So. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Are you going to, have you been posting about this on LinkedIn?
It's going to be posted this afternoon, but we shot an email out to all, everybody we've been talking to like a week ago. So,
well, if you got Texo support,
yeah,
we're big Texo supporters.
Me too.
I love Melanie. I think she's so great.
The best.
It's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on a podcast. I feel like we taught everybody about strengths. It was so much fun. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun.